All right. Happy Friday, everybody. Just want to welcome everybody to the Clear Channel. So, different place for me today in my office. So I got a different background, which I'm excited about, sitting on the couch here. But, for you guys that are joining us for the very first time in maybe live today or even on the YouTube channel, welcome to the Clear Channel. We started this thing a few years ago, and the whole purpose, the intention is to help change the world one leader at a time. The deeper meaning for you guys that know me very, very well is God forbid anything happens to me. I want my boys to know what their dad did in their prime, and they have a place to go to hear from amazing, amazing people and people that I respect and I aspire to be like. And today is no surprise. We got my good friend Sarah Ward on. Thank you so much, Sarah, for jumping on today. How
Yeah,
are you?
I good. I love that you're like in my prime. Is it in your prime or in your kid's prime? Because I want to know, is this your prime? Because I want to take notes of that for sure.
Okay, okay. So this is how this call is going to go.
This is
Sarah and
how
I,
this call is gonna go.
this is going to be pretty fun.
And
So
I like that coincidentally we're behind all the trophies behind you. So
yeah,
this is perfect.
coincidentally, yeah, all
Yeah.
trophies are all over
Oh,
here. I'm just saying. I'm just
so,
saying.
oh my gosh, let me bring my trophies. Oh, you caught me. Sorry, I was just cleaning my award.
So Sarah and I, for you guys that are on joining us today live, Sarah and I have known each other for 15 years, and we've been in a forum group together. We knew each other before that, for sure.
Yes.
But we've been in a group of entrepreneurs, and really, to be fair, kind of growing up in business and in life together. I
Yeah.
know I was, back in the day, was one of the first forum mates that had kids, and now basically everyone in our group has families and have children, and all
I think it's
entrepreneurs.
contagious. It might be contagious. That's how
Right?
kids
I don't
happen.
know. I
I
don't know.
mean,
We just, we like to have a good time, I guess. I don't
yeah,
know.
that's a different podcast.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you about Sarah's background. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due. So first of all, she was born and raised in Southern California. She lived in Mexico from up until 22 years old, right? I know you moved back to the U.S. because you went to school in Mexico, right? You came into this organization in sales, learned the business, moved to London, helped expand not only her companies here in the US, but also ran an office in London for a period of time. We're going to talk about that. And she's a proud mom of two beautiful girls, me and Alyssa. Has been, now currently lives in South Florida in Miramar. So tell us, so first of all, Sarah, tell us about young Sarah and before work and life and family background, things like that, if you don't mind. So kind of let us
Oh,
know.
young Sarah was fun. I mean, maybe too much fun. Okay. No, I always loved going to school. I was ambitious, but I always wanted to have a good time. So like our apartment in college was known as like the apartment for parties because we were so close to campus. So everyone would come over and every night we would like play Risk, which is funny, like Risk the world domination game with drinking like those like huge 24-ounce gulp, whatever of like Bacardi and Coke. And we would just drink Bacardi and Coke and play dominoes and shoot the shit and all that stuff. So it was really fun. We went to clubs all the time, but I graduated. I was like really intent on like having a really fun time, but also doing really well in school. So in Mexico, in order to graduate with your bachelor's degrees, you actually have to pick your degree before you start college. So
Oh,
day
wow.
one, you have to apply. Like I was applying for communications. And so you're with your same classmates kind of throughout. And then the last like 2 years, you like specialize in like, in my case, business communication. But you have to go to school. You have to take 9 classes a semester for 9 semesters to get a bachelor's. So it's like 81 classes and 444 credits or something like that. It's been a minute. Um, but I was like, I graduated with like in Mexico they do like a 10-point system, right? So I graduated with a 9.983. Like I think I got two
Damn.
nines and then, whatever, 79 tens throughout college. But I also like won an award for partying the hardest, I think. like all good type of partying. Um, but yeah, it was a great time. I had so much fun.
Love it.
Yeah, it was really fun. But then when I graduated in Mexico, it was like, I don't know. I didn't feel like people were taking me seriously, right? I felt like I really wanted to do something with my life, and everyone's like, "Yeah, well, but why don't you just get married and then be a stay-at-home mom?" And I'm like, "No, that's not like who I am." So I moved back to the U.S. and I was like, "Let's see what I can do here." And one of the biggest challenges that I ran into, and I think a lot of people do, is having gone to school so full time. When I started looking for jobs, it was so challenging because one, even though I worked really hard for my degree, they published my thesis. Like there was all of these things about it that I graduated with honors, salutatorian, like all of this stuff. People were like, "Yeah, and where's your work experience?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, I was in school, 40 plus hours a week. I didn't have, and there was 40 plus hours a week of partying where there was no time for work, right?" So I just was looking for a company that was willing to give me a chance, that weren't just looking at the fact that I had no experience. And everyone's like, "Well, you need experience to get experience." And I'm like, "How am I supposed to get experience? No one will give me a job," right? Like, I need someone to take a chance on me. I know I'm a good bet, but I just don't have anyone that's bet on me yet. And so this is the only job I've ever done. Started in this. I interviewed at Nestle, Primerica, a bunch of different companies. And this was the one company that I felt like was going to see me for who I was and not my experience or my age, and where I was going to be able to move up at my own speed. So that's
Love it.
why I started as
And so in your family being, so keep me honest here. Dad, California school, right?
Dad, my dad he's now since retired, but he was professor. My mom too, my stepmom, all of them were like teachers. And my dad ended up moving up to principal, and then assistant superintendent in
Right.
Southern California, an
Right. Because I
Inland
remember,
Empire.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I remember being in Inland Empire in Ontario and Rancho Cucamonga, and used to. Yeah, that's right. Okay, cool.
You know it, go Rancho. I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah, my dad is Tim Ward and Francie Ward. My brother actually still works in that school district. He's a high school teacher
that's
now.
awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome. And so you're back in the U.S. in your early 20s, I would assume, right? Or when you
Yes.
were 7 or 8 years old, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take me 10 years to graduate college, right? Like, I didn't do the whole, like, National Lampoon or whatever. Like, you spend years in college because you're partying so hard. No, yeah. I was, like, 22.
And then and you come across our opportunity just in our industry in sales. So tell me about sales. How was it early on in sales for you, and what was it? You mentioned the training and development, the things like that were super important for you to learn, just get your foot in the door, get a shot.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think I read a stat yesterday, and I shared on our call that we were on yesterday about college graduates today. There's for every graduate, or for every two graduates, there's one job right now in 2024. So
Yeah,
for
scary.
graduates to actually get a position is harder than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, to be in a position that they can learn and grow and gain valuable life skills, sales skills, is even more. But so tell me about just young in this experience in sales. Were
Yeah.
you good at it? Were you not good at it? Tell me about it.
Uh-huh. A little bit of both for sure. I didn't think, I wasn't sure that I wanted to do sales. Like, it wasn't that sales was something I was looking for. I was like account management, people. What I was really interested in was a chance to be able to grow and move up within a company. And I was my mentality was like, I will do whatever it takes. I need to get good at something. I need to find an industry. My goal before coming into the company was I wanted to eventually run my own business. And in my head, my plan had been, you know, get a job, get some experience. I have no idea, I have no skills whatsoever, right? Or I have no networking, I have no money. Like, I need to build some skills. I need to build a reputation. I need to network with people. I need to work hard, save up money. And then in my mid 40s, my plan was hopefully I have enough money saved, enough of an idea of what I'm doing that I can, like, quit my job and like start my own company. And so when I came into this business and I was like, wait a second, you're going to teach me and help me and finance me running my own business and I don't have to wait until I'm 45. Like, I'm in. What do I need to do? Right. And they're like, hey, the industry is sales. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I mean, they could have said whatever the industry I would have been open to, because to me it was more about that big picture of getting a chance to learn something. And then later, now looking back, I'm so grateful it was sales because I do think that sales is something that everyone needs to learn.
Sure.
And I feel like everyone should go through the field or, be in some sort of sales position at some sort. It just teaches you so many life skills and it makes you so marketable. But at the time, I was like, okay, this is the vehicle, I'm going to do it. So initially, no, I was not good at sales. I was really good at talking to people, but I struggled with my attitude and I so struggled taking control. I never wanted to be that pushy salesperson. So I always had that hard time between being like assertive and not being assertive enough. And it took me a while to really get that distinction that taking control is not about being pushy. It's about being assertive and it's about also being confident. And we do this so much in our personal lives. And even I use the example of like, if I'm walking to a door and I have a ton of books and all of a sudden you're walking next to me, you're just going to go and grab the door and open it because you can see I can't hold it. You're not going to stop and say, would you like me to open the door for you? Like, no one expects that, right? That is taking control. And we do it so naturally when we feel like we're helping people. And I just had to switch my mentality from, hey, I'm being aggressive or whatever to I'm helping people. I should be confident. I shouldn't wait for them to say, yeah, I want to do this. Of course you do. This is better for you. Let's do it. So that was really challenging and obviously maintaining my attitude. I think that was something that took me a while to get. But candidly, Ken, I think I've struggled at everything in the business. I was not the best trainer. I struggled a ton with interviews. I used to like hug people and like, I think you can do this. Like, and they're like, I don't know if I can. I'm like, let's do it. I actually hired a guy in Southern California. We were going business to business and I hired a guy who was allergic to sunlight. Okay. This is the level of clearly I'm not identifying quality candidates. He's like, I'm allergic to sunlight. I'm like, it's okay. We will go to office buildings and we will find a way. He started every day he'd leave the office looking normal and he'd come back at the end of the day and his face was like closed, his eyes were closed shut, his was all poofy. And I was like, okay, dude, I'll see you tomorrow. I think he lasted like 3 days and then he realized this might not be the career for me. And I was like, what? So I struggled with seeing what people were willing to do and who was right for the position versus seeing I was so excited about the position. I thought everyone should be. And so I would see that people have potential and I would hire people based on what they could potentially do, not necessarily what they were willing to do. And that was a lesson I had to learn.
So true. It's the idea of being successful in sales. And just in general, there's some positions in the world that people can't do, right? Like I'm not 7'2" dribbling a basketball, and or Cristiano Ronaldo on the
Right.
soccer field. I wish,
Yeah, totally.
to make millions. But in sales, it's more about attitude and effort and what you're willing to put into it. Things that people could learn if they really believed in themselves and leaned into the process.
Right.
And it's just more of a will. And my mom used to say, "Where there's a will, there's a way," but you have to have the will.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
for
tell me
sure.
about leadership. So you mentioned recruiting was a struggle, training people, hiring people that were, that shouldn't be out in the sunlight when we do outside
Mm-hmm.
sales in some parts of our business.
Mm-hmm.
So those lessons are hard, right? And I'm sure you worked with John, right?
Yeah.
And for you guys that know John, and John, I'm sure, told you and kind of tried to guide you to learn those lessons before you learn them yourselves. Hey, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this. I would do this. I would do that. And I know he's sometimes being, alphas and a little stubborn. At least I know I am. You
Yeah.
may not have been.
Yeah. No,
We had
no,
to learn our own
100%.
lessons, right?
Yeah. He did try. He tried to give me some guidance, but I think what John did really well was he more was just his kind of mentality was fail faster, right? Like take a ton of shots, interview a ton of people, train a ton of people. You're going to make mistakes. Just don't be afraid to make them. Make them as soon as you possibly can and then fail forward, right? Like learn from them. Don't look at as a failure. Just like, okay, like the one of my mottos is from Nelson Mandela, which is I don't lose, I learn or I grow, right? And so that was taught to me early on, right? Like relationships don't have to be permanent to be successful. So even if I trained someone for a week, that guy that was allergic to sunlight, it wasn't a wasted time, right? He learned a little bit more about sales and definitely that he is not fit for outside sales in California. And I also learned that I have to think about what's good for them and not what I think is good for them, right? So it was still a valuable lesson. I think every interaction, whether you're training someone or interviewing, regardless of the result, there's still something to be learned, and therefore it's still valuable, right? So I think that was really what John instilled in me is take a ton of chances. I'm going to give you some guidelines, but you're going to learn this for yourself, and I'll be here to support you along the way and teach you. Keep asking me, what did you learn from it? What did you learn from it? What should you do differently? Okay, what did you learn from it? So I think he did a great job at doing that.
And it's so often we have to learn those lessons, right? That that we going through it is more valuable than them telling us about it. And I know that is my career in a nutshell. Sessions was the same with me. He said, "Hey, I would certain things along the way. Look out for this. Look out for that." And then maybe it's my ego. Maybe
Right.
it's like, oh, I think
That's
I
not
can
going to
do
happen
it.
to me.
I can do it better. I don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know that's your experience, but not mine. Like, don't worry. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good.
They're coming.
Okay. That's you. That's your happy. I know. I feel like I have not done as good of a job as a coach with that. I definitely want to eliminate people's pain. And so even with my kids, right? Like, I'm like, don't do this because it's going to be like this. And then you realize pain is part of the lesson, right? Pain is the teacher. You're not going to let people make a decision or something so painful that it's going to be scarring for life. But, it's okay to bump into something and fall down and, cry a little bit. Like that's how we all learn.
Agreed. Agreed. So you start running a business. Where did you run your first office?
Orlando. Orlando. I moved multiple times before, making it to management because I started in Irvine, went to San Diego, worked in San Diego, then Baltimore, got promoted to assistant management in Baltimore, and then mid assistant management, the client we were working with, went out of business, which it was like a huge, huge company. So it was crazy for everyone. But it just made sense for me to move and finish my assistant management in Miami because there was going to be a better opportunity there. So I actually came here to Miami, finished assistant management, and then opened up in Orlando. And so I spent about 10 years in Orlando. That's worked with a ton of different clients, did B2B, did some residential, and that's where I kind of really earned my stripes to go to Europe.
And tell us about that trip. Tell us about Europe. What was it like? Who did we work with over there and that whole experience? I mean, a different country. You start business in a different country. Obviously, you had an organization and a big business here in the States, and now you're on a different. I mean, 10 what? Eight, well, no, in London was 6 hour
Five
difference.
hours. Five
5 hours.
hours from Eastern, yeah, most of the time. They do, their daylight savings happens like 2 weeks before our daylight savings. And so there was definitely times that was like, okay, no, now we're 6 hour difference. Now we're 4 hour difference. So there's definitely some challenges there. But London was amazing, Ken. I mean, my dad retired right when I was moving to London, and he still always is like, oh, London. And look, I mean, obviously, if you visited London, it's an amazing city. Most people in London were like, wait, you moved from Florida here? Why? But my experience in London was amazing. Like, first of all, I first lived in an apartment building. I was on the 21st floor. I could see London, at least in most of the apartments, doesn't have a lot of like high rises. So on the 21st floor, I could literally see like miles and miles of just London. I would walk to work. My second place, I lived right in front of MI6. I actually lived on the Thames River, and my flat, from the balcony of my flat, you could see the Big Ben. So you could see like Parliament and the Big Ben and all the boats coming by. There was this boat that was like a bar that was like just permanently there. It's a bar boat. I don't know even how. Yeah. Anyway, that's what it was. And I would walk 15 minutes to work, like through little like parks areas. There was like a petting zoo at times. On the way back, I'd like pet a donkey, and it was just awesome. On the weekends, I could hop on a flight for $35 and be in Paris or Italy or Croatia or Malta, or we just went all over. That's where I met my husband. I had my first daughter there, and it was great. It was absolutely fun. Professionally, it was one of the best experiences, but also one of the most challenging. Because when we got there, our intention was to work with British Telecom, which is kind of like the AT&T of the U.S. And I moved in September, and the idea was that by January, we thought that contract would be done. So initially, I was working with a hodgepodge of different clients, and that we knew weren't really going to be the client, but just to kind of learn the way, recruiting, and all the ins and outs. The challenge is we didn't sign. So I moved in 2013. We thought we were going to sign in January of 2014. We did not end up signing that contract until 2015. Right. So there was a lot of trying to make, I was at one point running 3 campaigns. Like one was merchant processing. We'd go business to business for that. Then we were doing some cell phones. It was like a company that would sell different carriers of cell phones. Right. So it's kind of like you could sell Verizon and AT&T and whatever, but it was just business cell phones. There's a lot of rules in the UK about what you can and cannot do. So it was definitely very challenging. And also, then once we started running British Telecom, I was responsible for kind of everything. I was the campaign management and the owner. So I had to talk to our call center that was in India, and they were like 12, no, they were 6 hours ahead of us. And so some of our challenges were like, we had to do TPV calls at 6 p.m., which was midnight for them. And they lived in a place in India that was remote. So most of the people didn't have cars, and the last bus left at midnight. So if they weren't on that last bus, because they were doing a TPV call for us, they had to spend the night at the office. And so, like there was just some really interesting challenges, things that I'd never dealt with in the past.
Wow.
But it just taught me so much. And we were really successful. I ended up running an office with about 60 people in it. And yeah, I just loved every minute of it.
So with all these experiences of running companies, London, Orlando, you moved around a bunch. What would you tell your younger self? Looking back, you're obviously now in your mid to late 20s,
Yeah, yeah, obviously,
and
obviously. All of this happened in
clearly,
7 years.
yeah. So what would you tell? I mean, recent out of college, what would you tell yourself? You have all these experiences. You've made millions of dollars. You run amazing companies. Have now a beautiful family. You live in you just bought $1 million home on a lake, like
Yeah.
in South Florida. What would you tell your younger self?
That's a great question. And sometimes I hesitate to know what to say, because part of me thinks that, like we talked about initially, all of the things that I went through, good and bad, if I tried to say anything to myself to prevent me from doing some of the pieces, and maybe things wouldn't have turned out the same way, right? But if there is something I would say, is that just to be appreciative of the lessons that I'm learning, in the field, because really the field taught me do whatever it takes mentality. It taught me take control of your opportunity, make things happen. Don't wait for things to happen. Search out that to make them happen, right? Set yourself up for success. Make great decisions. Like all of those type of things. I don't know if you can hear the background music, but there's some music in the background in my office. Okay. I think those, just appreciate those lessons, because I was saying this morning to my office. I was like, I really feel like I would have been successful no matter what. No matter what company I went into, I would have been successful. I'm grateful I picked this vehicle because it helped me do so well. And I could have moved up and been high up in another company and not have the freedom of time or the flexibility or the finances or the friendships that I have today. But I think that the mentality that I learned in the field and that discipline of do whatever it takes, take control of your opportunity, figure out what your goals are and make the best decisions, those things would have probably made me successful in anything I did. So I think just appreciate what you're learning, take advantage of the experiences, know that it's significant, and then, know that everything's going to work out in the end because it always does.
I don't know if you remember, but we did in our forum group. There was a question about this, and the question was something like that: What would you tell your younger self at 22? And we'd all had 15, 20 years of experience at this point. And of the eight of us, seven of the eight said something like, "Don't be so hard on
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's going to work out
Right.
fine." All of us said something that
Right.
vein of the conversation.
And I think that the group that we're talking to makes sense, but I do think that sometimes there's a generation of people that are just like, oh, I'm just going to wait and let things happen. And I think we are the type of people to make things happen. So if you're the type of person to make things happen, you're already ahead of the game, right? You're just so far ahead of probably what a lot of people are doing. Don't be so hard on yourself when things don't work out exactly as you thought they were supposed to, because maybe they will in the end. It was just not the right time for it. But I definitely think if there's other people out there who have kind of a carefree mindset, I would definitely say, like, take your life seriously. You are the architect of your future. Only you get to decide where you go. And there are a lot of great opportunities in the world. And there's always people that seize those opportunities and do well. And there's a lot of other people that don't and keep thinking that the grass is greener someplace else. It's not. You just have to commit to something, whatever you commit to. If you do the right things, if you work hard, if you have that mentality to do whatever it takes, you're going to still be one of the top 5% in that company. So pick where you want to be. Like, pick the goals that you have and then commit to them for sure.
Yeah, it's like I think the saying is the grass is greener wherever you water it,
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Yes.
right? So, well, I know it's after 11:30, and we had until 11:32. I know you have things you got to do. Any final thoughts? Thank you so much for doing this. There, sorry for that little craziness, whatever happened there.
Me talking to myself.
Of course, it
I'm
didn't go
like,
as
I
planned.
think I was like, I think we're alone now. But I was like, I don't know. I don't know if we are. So let me keep going.
Do you remember? By the way, do you remember that time we had a conference and you just randomly started singing on stage in front of
Yes.
everybody?
All right. What conference are you talking about? Because I feel like that happened so many times. Yes.
The same conference where you did like some
Cups
cup
things,
thing?
yes. At random, I might start singing or dancing or something like that. I think
Some magic
magic
tricks?
tricks for sure. I think just having fun, right? Like no matter what you do, my final message is have fun, right? It's not about the destination. It's about the journey, and more importantly, it's who you become in the journey. It's really, I think, what becomes the true magic of everything. So, thank you for having me, Ken. So nice
Love it.
talking to you.
Love it. You're welcome. Sarah, have an
Thank
awesome
you.
day. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Have an awesome day. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic Friday.
Thank
Take
you.
care.